Got everybody? All right, good. Hey, folks, how you doing? Well, we're here for another morning of Saturday Sentiments, where we dig deep to get to the good stuff. I hope that you all are doing well. Of course, listening to my gospel jazz radio as usual. Thank you always to Mr. RichardDAbreuJr for his continued excellent work in the promotion of this wonderful genre. And we got some interesting stuff to talk about today. And it's a little sensitive, I know too, but I think it's important to talk about it. My topic today is cultural appreciation versus cultural appropriation. And even when you listen to the two words, they sound very different, and with good reason. So before I get into all that, I want to just give a couple of announcements. One, thank you to everyone who came to the Tin Pan last Thursday to see me and my brother Sticks. It was a special day, and I really appreciate everyone who came. It was awesome. And my hope was to have a live stream that was going to be available. Is that Atiba? Hey, brother, how are you doing? That was my hope, but it didn't exactly work out the way that I planned. So, but we will have a video that we're working on now. My other good friend Corey Brown is a wonderful engineer, and he also did the video recording. So we're working on that now, kind of doing the editing process and so on. So I'll let you know more about that as it comes, and we're excited about the possibility. So thank you to everybody who came out. Also, today I'm off for a change. Soul Expressions has a break, so I'm taking advantage of it. I haven't done a Saturday Sentiments in a while now, so wanted to let y'all kind of know what kinds of things I've been thinking about. Also, I'm still working on my Christmas album. Dr. Will, hello, sir. So more on that as there is more to say. But most immediately, I'm working on my book. It's a lot of work, and I missed 2 deadlines already. Get deep into the weeds about stuff, but so I don't want to give another date. Like people are like, when is the book going to be ready? When's the book going to be ready? Soon. I'll just say soon. Just hang tight with me on that. But as I've been reading, as I've been studying, as I've been writing, there's some thoughts that have been coming to my mind, and that's kind of what has brought me to this conversation today. Also, got to get the commercials in. We have these T-shirts available, Jazz and Spirit T-shirts. The ones that we have for sale are white. We don't really have black ones yet, but if you really want a black one, just send us a little note. We might be able to help you out. Okay, but for now we're focusing on the white ones because they're just a little bit easier to manufacture en masse, So then we also have these mugs, the Jazz and the Spirit mugs, which come in very handy at times like these. So We have those available for sale as well. And of course, the Jazz in the Spirit album is still out there. It's a little over a year old now, but you can get it in CD form at www.jazzinthespirit.com. You can download it. Hey, Brother Chalcon, how you doing? Hey, Trish, how you doing? We still have that, and we want you to continue to support the project. It definitely was made with a lot of love, and I hope that you feel that when you listen. And I want you all to thank you for all the Instagram folks who are coming through. Those of you that may be on Facebook or YouTube or any of the other platforms, holler at me. Just let me know you're there. And I was always glad to hear from you. So I guess let me see. I'm trying to just make sure there's nothing else that I wanted. Oh yes, there is one other thing I wanted to tell you all. My video for Because He Lives. It's on my YouTube channel. It's originally it's a video from 2013 when I went to the Hampton Ministers Conference, and it was just a very special God moment that happened that day, and it's still bearing fruit, y'all. I'm telling you, this is my most watched video ever. I found out this week that it has just surpassed 31,000 views. Oh my goodness. I don't think I have any videos that have even come close to that. But like I said, that's just a God moment. And something special just happened in the room that day. And people are still being touched by it, and they're still responding in great numbers to it all over the world, really, which is very exciting. It's very, I'm just really very, very, very grateful that continues to go forward and to bless people, because that's been my whole goal, to just touch somebody's life and give them hope, give them inspiration to keep going forward. So for those of you that have been part of that 31,000, thank you. So I definitely appreciate it. And before we go today, I'm going to let you all hear my song, Count Your Blessings. It is an arrangement of a hymn, and it's got a kind of Caribbean flavor to it, which is kind of related to the topic today too. But I'm going to say more. I'm going to say more about that later. But just if you can hang till I get to it, I appreciate it. If you got to go, no problem. You can watch the video later. But let me jump in to my topic here, since you all are here and you came right at the beginning. I definitely appreciate it. All right. My wife would want me to tell you to please like, follow, and subscribe, and click the notification bell. Jazz in the Spirit, everything. It's on Facebook, Jazz in the Spirit. It's on YouTube, Jazz in the Spirit video. It's on Instagram, as you see, Jazz in the Spirit. And it's on Twitch, Jazz in the Spirit. It's on Periscope, Twitter, Jazz in the Spirit. It's everywhere. And of course, it's my website, jazzinthespirit.com. It's all of those things. So yeah, definitely check those out and keep in touch with me. You can also, hey, Brother Ed, how are you doing? You can also send an email to people who make a difference at jazzinthespirit.com and let me know what you're up to, what things you might be doing in a particular week to make a difference in someone else's life, because that's one of my big goals, is to inspire people to not only do for themselves but to do for others as well. So definitely keep that in mind as you go about your daily life. Yeah, make sure I don't spill it. Okay, so into the meat here. I'm just going to tell you out front that a conversation about cultural appropriation versus appreciation in the United States definitely is a conversation about race and racial identity and contribution and creative expression and authenticity. It's about all of those things. So if those things make you uncomfortable, good. Because they should. But that doesn't mean that you should refrain from talking about them or thinking about them. They're here, regardless. And the sooner we begin to openly and honestly discuss these topics, I think the less painful they'll be to talk about, because they'll just be kind of in the same way that it's much easier for, the great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren to talk about, good morning, Miss Phyllis, thanks for being here. It's easier for, those descendants, the great-grandkids, to talk about what their forebears did, and it's not emotional, it's just, this is just what happened. When we're closer to it, we got all the emotional baggage that goes along, like not wanting to feel shamed or guilty about what happened. But listen, it happened. There's nothing that you can do to turn it around now. It's just, it's there. So the question is, what are we going to do now to make some of the wrongs right, and to keep from repeating some of the negative things that have taken place in the past? So that's just out front. Good morning, Nelson. How are you doing? Good to have you here. Looking forward to this year. All right, so let me start with a quote from the book. I'm going to turn this down just a little more. Point of note: discussions along racial lines make many people uncomfortable because they feel like it's divisive and can alienate. However, divisions on the basis of race were literally written into the Constitution of the U.S. Most of the early laws, and were at the heart of the U.S. Civil War, let alone Jim Crow, civil rights movements of the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and so many other points of contention, even to the present day. So it is baked into the cake of U.S. history. And since all of these styles of music were born out of U.S. history and culture, guess what? There's no getting away from discussing race as a central and pivotal factor in the creation and evolution of American music. What I have learned and what I have observed is the following cultural phenomenon. Black people, especially in the U.S., will create a musical sound and style as an answer, response, coping mechanism, or just way of handling the oppressive conditions that they find themselves in. Because the oppression is powerful, the response is equally powerful. It begins to spread and resonate not only with Black people, but white people and others as well, even some of the ones who were contributing to the oppression. Let that sink in. As a result of its popularity, because of its intense power and ability to create an emotional response, it is copied by whites who are initially just seen as admirers, but later, because of greater resources and access to methods of distribution, become even more popular, with the immense financial gain that comes from wide popular acclaim, even more popular than the creators. Then they are given superlative nicknames like the king, the chairman of the board, etc., etc. But because this cultural appropriation, a term most used in current times, just becomes another form of oppression, Black people find other ways to express themselves, which spawns another musical sound. Is any of this starting to sound familiar? I hope so, because it's happened over and over again throughout history. Think of the spirituals and ragtime giving rise to bluegrass and Southern gospel. But then later, Reverend Thomas Dorsey, not Tommy Dorsey, but Reverend Thomas A. Dorsey's gospel blues emerging afterwards. Think of New Orleans jazz, Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, and Count Basie, giving rise to Glenn Miller, Thomas Dorsey, and the King of Swing, Mr. Benny Goodman. But then Charlie Bird Parker and Dizzy Gillespie and Max Roach cultivating bebop after that. Think about Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie playing in Red Norvo's band. This is a white vibraphonist. And Miles Davis's Birth of the Cool emerging after that. Then think of the West Coast jazz sound, which became to be called cool jazz, right? Mostly white players, but followed by an emergence of Black players in the hard bop movement of the 60s. Think about Big Mama Thornton and Sister Rosetta Tharpe giving rise to the King, Elvis Presley. And the list just goes on and on and on. Like I said, not all of these are, I want to make a distinction between appropriation and appreciation, because there is a difference. And what is the difference? Okay, well, Luke 12:48 says, and this is something I used to quote to my son all the time, "Unto whomsoever much is given, of the same shall much be required." So what does that have to do with this? Well, first of all, when you're given a lot, you're expected to give as well. There's more expected of you than you're given a little, and you're only expected to give a little. If you're given a lot, you're expected to give a lot. What I've seen far too often is this phenomenon where the artists that create the sound, that give rise to the sound, are not given enough credit for what they've literally created. And then when other folks, and unfortunately, like I said, this does usually fall along racial lines. And I know there are a lot more complexities in the modern era than just quote unquote black and white. But it's still a phenomenon that exists today, that too often the artists that create the sound are not given sufficient credit for the sound. And then even if they're given credit, they're not given money. Let's just put it where it is. Sometimes, that's for their own dealings, because they, might have not signed very good record deals at the time. So although the thing became very, very successful, they only came away with somebody just gave them a car, or somebody gave them some drugs, or something, to meet kind of an immediate need, but nowhere near the lifelong royalties and payments that will sustain you over a career that they deserved as a result of having created some of this stuff. Now, the great thing is that there are some success stories. For example, we know about, I think probably a lot of folks have seen the movie Ray, and how Ray Charles, one of the things he did very successfully was he made sure that he owned the masters for his songs. And so his estate was doing very well as a result of the commercial success of those songs, as well as Stevie Wonder, did very, very well off, as he should, off of the songs that he wrote. Now, the thing is, as often as that has happened, there are far too many times when it did not. And that's what I really want to talk about here. How I came across this, what got me thinking about it originally was in reading. I've been doing a lot of reading, y'all. Some of the books I'll just show you because I want to recommend them to you. This is one of them. You see it's still kind of open. The New Grove Gospel, Blues, and Jazz by Paul Oliver, Max Harrison, and William Bolcom. This is the modern version. It's part of the larger set of the New Grove dictionary. Actually, I'm going to leave this one out because I have something I want to share with y'all from here. But that's the new version. This is the old version that I got during my Brown days, and it's still been with me now. There's this one. It's called "Living the Life I Sing." "Living the Life I Sing" by Alphonso Simpson Jr. and Thomas Dorsey III, the grandson of Thomas Dorsey, the father of gospel music. And there's this one. It's just called "Jazz." Edited by John Fordham, and it's a pictorial history as well as oral history of jazz as it's evolved in the U.S. This one is a tough one. It's called "Jazz and Justice" by Mr. Gerald Horne, who's a historian. I want to share some things from these books, not all of them, but a few of them, with you to kind of give some meat to the things that I'm saying. So a little bit about the Big Mama Thornton and Elvis song. One of the things, let me just read something to you. This is from the Encyclopedia of Alabama. Which is where Big Mama Thornton, her name was Willa Mae Thornton. She's that's where she's from, is Alabama. It says she first recorded Hound Dog if those of you who haven't heard that song, you ain't nothing but a hound dog. It was a monster hit all over the country in those days, and so most famously. Recorded by Elvis Presley, but she was the one for whom it was actually written. So it said she first recorded Hound Dog in 1952 and received $500 in payment, which was not nothing, but I mean, this is a #1 song in the country. Her only earnings, those were her only earnings from the song. The discrepancy between their fates, meaning her and Elvis Presley, the discrepancy between their fates has been described as perhaps the most notorious example of the inequity that often existed when a black original was covered by a white artist. And that's from the Encyclopedia of Alabama in 2016. Now the thing is, there is a little more complexity to this because I didn't know about all this till I did a little bit reading. The actual composers of that song were Mike Stoller and Jerry Lieber, who were two white Jewish men who were pretty young, I think teenagers or early 20s, when they wrote the song. They just were they loved blues music. That was their favorite thing in the world. And when they first met Miss Thornton, they were just blown away by her whole presence, her whole powerful, she was about 6 feet tall, and that's why they called her Big Mama, and she had a very, very powerful, impact. And so when they heard her sing, they wrote the song with her in mind. And, and when she sang it, she recorded it in 1952, but it wasn't released until 1953, by which time she had forgotten about it until she heard it on the radio. And it just, and so she decided to sing it publicly after she heard it on the radio, and it just took off. Even with her singing, it went to #1 on the R&B charts. But then people started doing all of these covers of it, and those became popular. One was even resulted in a lawsuit for copyright infringement. And as it turns out, the company who was sued actually had to sell their they sold their recording contract to make up for the debts to RCA Records, and their recording contract was with Elvis Presley. And so as a result of that, that is how Elvis Presley got connected to the song. But it should also be noted that when he first heard it, he heard it from a white group, Freddie Bell and the Bell Boys. They were a Vegas act. And so when he heard their version, he wanted to do it. And uniquely enough, his song, his version, Elvis Presley's version of it, I think was the first time in history that a song went to #1 on the pop charts, on the R&B charts, and the country charts all at the same time. So I don't know if that's happened in history before or since, but can't take anything away from him for doing that, and his people for marketing and promoting it that way. So, but the thing is, you can pretty much imagine that he and his folks made way more than $500 from that song. It literally became, an iconic song for the culture and that time in our history. And in the meantime, Miss Willa Mae Thornton, kind of faded into obscurity. And it was only later, oh yeah, that's right, she did do that, So unfortunately, this is not a new phenomenon. And the question is, what did Mr. Elvis Presley do when he made that money? Did he say, oh, I want to say thank you very much to Miss Willa Mae Thornton, or to Mike Stoller and Jerry Lieber, who wrote the song, or, throw them any money? I don't know. I don't have a sense that he did. It's just, I don't have any evidence per se, but something just does not seem to, I think that would have been newsworthy had he done that, and I don't see any record of that happening. So once again, when you've been given, it is on you to also give. And a lot of people miss that. Hello, Sister Jackie, how you doing? There's a responsibility that you have, whether you acknowledge it or not, whether you accept it or not, that you're not just here to please yourself and to get your money and to just leave this world the same way you found it. You have a responsibility to do something as well, especially when you've been blessed. My mom in love is, she, used to say to my son all the time, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but she'd say, you're blessed to be a blessing. And, the idea was, that you have been given, but you also have a responsibility to give. And everybody doesn't see that the same way, and that's all right. If folks disagree with me, I'm fine with that. But as she also used to say, it's the truth anyhow. So here, I want to share this a little bit from this book. This is on the chapter in the New Grove. Now, the New Grove, I was a music major at Brown University. It was one of the great universities and historic universities in the U.S. Built by slaves. It is what it is. It's history. John Nicholas Brown, who was founded, was a slave owner. It just, got to face the reality. But I did get a great education from there, and I'm very appreciative of what I learned there. So in the chapter on that, as I studied, this was a resource that we used a lot in our research papers. But the person who was writing it, Max Harrison, he comes off, it's very, very deep musical study, and he's a very learned person and all that stuff. But sometimes he comes off just a little bit arrogant, in his descriptions, like he's the authority on this stuff. So he's talking about the cool jazz movement of the 1950s, and it's pretty thick, so I won't read the whole thing. But I just wanted to share the difference in the way that he characterized the contribution of someone like Miles Davis as opposed to the way some of the other books did. Let me go to the, let's see here. Okay, he's talking about Gil Evans, who was the arranger of that album, the signature album, Birth of the Cool, Miles Davis's album. And he said, the most direct consequence of Evans's initiatives was a dozen 1949 to 50 recordings made by Miles Davis with a nonet, that's 9-piece ensemble, which reduced the Thornhill instrumentation to its essentials, meaning Claude Thornhill was a composer who Gil Evans kind of patterned some of his arranging on. Items like Boplicity and Moon Dreams, both scored by Evans, made more concentrated use of the recent discoveries. Let me go jump down a little bit. And let's see. Okay, there's about a whole other paragraph that he writes before he gets to this. But he said, these strikingly original performances include fine improvised solos from Davis's trumpet, meaning Miles, from Jerry Mulligan, baritone saxophone, Lee Konitz, so white alto sax player, and others who were to shape the jazz of the next few years. But it was the scores of Evans, Carisi, Mulligan, and John Lewis. John Lewis is a keyboard player that broke new ground. Several years later, Davis and Evans further explored the worlds of sound and expression discovered with these short pieces. So it's kind of like, good morning, Brother Moses. It's kind of like a glancing, oh yeah, he did some nice stuff kind of reference to Miles, but but he really wants to emphasize Gil Evans. Now, Max Harrison, great scholar and musicologist, white man, it's not for nothing. You can't kind of remove that from this conversation. One of the things that Brown University did teach us was to critically analyze, i.e. to not only read what the person says, but kind of analyze where it is that they're coming from, because everyone views what they write through a lens. In theology, they call it a hermeneutic. It's the thing that colors your view or your perspective. Now, talking about the same phenomenon. Okay, now here is a black historian, Gerald Horne, talking about the same time period. And he starts with a conversation about a drummer, Roy Porter, who had been imprisoned And when he came out, he was talking about the differences in the world that he observed after that. So, let's see. It says, when he was released, meaning Roy Porter, when he was released from prison as the pivotal year of 1957 approached, he found clubs leaving Central Avenue. That was a place where, the music had been really concentrated, while remaining jobs were being gobbled up by white musicians just starting that cool school of jazz. Most black musicians couldn't fit in that narrow category, perhaps not coincidentally. This was even more ironic since the ebony-hued Miles Davis was a founder of this school of sound, and the very term cool, detached emotionally, shuttered behaviorally, and projecting an abrupt masculinity, was symbolized by the enigmatic trumpeter responsible for many twists and turns in the music. Well, the way this is characterized makes it sound like Miles had a much more important role than the way he was characterized in the New Grove. Okay, and then there's more. Okay, so a band leader, Stan Kenton, who did very well during this time, he was part of the whole the white West Coast jazz sound. It said, as Kenton's bankroll fattened, the brickbats tossed at him increased in velocity, meaning he was catching it. The band leader continued to be upset by polls that he felt did not reflect adequately his own presumed qualifications as a musician. There is a new minority group facing bias, he charged. Sound familiar? White jazz musicians. This brought him a sharp rebuke from Leonard Feather, who was a black jazz critic. Nobody heard a peep out of you when real prejudice existed back in the early 40s. Refusing to holster his weapon, meaning Feather was still coming for him, he asserted further that the graying Kenton, born in 1911, was riding your white charger to defend white supremacy and ignoring that almost every major development in jazz history has been the work of Negro musicians. Let that sink in. As early as 1950, it was Feather who argued vehemently that such polls show a definite discrimination against Negro musicians, since most or all the first place winners were white. Surprise, surprise, right? So the more things change, the more they seem to stay the same. But again, it's very important to read our history rather than having his story read to us and interpreted for us. It's very, very important. And you all have probably heard me talk. This is, again, a book called Jazz and Justice by the historian, Mr. Gerald Horne. I have spoken at some length about one of my mentors and one of my heroes, Mr. Max Roach, who famously, despised the word jazz, even though he was, heralded as one of the great masters of it as a style because of history. And he told me something. If I hadn't heard him say this directly to me, then I wouldn't have given it as much credence. But he said to me, back in the days of Emmett Till, and I hope you all know who Emmett Till is. If you don't, find out today, not tomorrow. He said to the woman who who accused Emmett Till of inappropriately behaving toward her, which she later recanted decades later. They asked her, meaning the white guys who were about to go and look for Emmett Till, asked her, did he jazz you? So yes, that word definitely had a negative sexual connotation, i.e., did he sexually assault you? Did he rape you? Did he, so that was an association that went with the word jazz, and that was the main reason why Mr. Max Roach did not like to use that word at all. And I would not have known that had I not heard from this great man directly himself in his house. And so, I think about that all the time. And I said, well, Mr. Roach, what would you call it then? He said, well, call it the music of Dizzy Gillespie, Charlie Parker, and Duke Ellington. I said, well, yes, sir, okay. And so if you've noticed, I have never, ever referred to Mr. Max Roach as a jazz anything. Many other people have, but out of respect for him and his legacy, I will never do that because I know that's where he stands. Similarly, there's another great man, Mr. Randy Weston, who also, not for the same reason, but he did not like the word jazz either. He preferred to use the word African rhythms. And if you ever met Mr. Randy Weston's piano player, he was really tall, maybe like 6'5", 6'6", something like that, towering person. So when he was like, this is what I'm calling it, you better listen, because Mr. Randy Weston was no joke. But these are the riches that come from exploring history. And history is nothing but stories that happened before, and we're just retelling them. So once again, what do we take away from this? We want to give credit where credit is due, but that's not enough. We also, when you have an opportunity, for those of you, this is the difference between appreciation and appropriation. When you have the opportunity, yes, I'm going to say it, put your money where your mouth is. Yep, I said it. Because what is the use in you making all kinds of money from this other source that you know you did not create, and you just keep it all to yourself? And I want to thank all the folks who helped to make this possible, and so and so and so. But are you really thanking them? And, when you have it like that, are you actually acknowledging them in a way, that old song, giving him something he can feel? I mean, that was talking about sex and stuff, but just, you gotta be able to appreciate people in a way that's meaningful to them. Some probably have heard of the legendary influential pop star Sylvester Stone, and made popular songs like "Thank You for Letting Me Be Myself" and other songs like that. Dance to the music. Hard life. But it was only much later that he started to get some of the residual and royalty money from songs that he wrote and made popular, that had been used all over the world. People had covered them like crazy and made all kind of money off of them, but he, the man himself, did not. And unfortunately, this is a phenomenon that has been happening throughout the decades for a good part of the history of this country. The good thing is that it's not always been that way. There are some who are, and I want to make sure that I say that I'm not trying to lump all white artists in a group, because there's diversity, just like among black people there's great diversity. I think about a saxophonist like David Sanborn, who I love his playing. I don't mind saying it. There was a show that he had back in the 90s. I can't remember the name of it, but I remember when I was in college, I used to see the show like late at night, and he would always have special guests coming on to his show talking about the people who really made this music special. I remember he had Sonny Rollins on there one time, and you can think of David Sanborn's style and Sonny Rollins' style. They're very, very different, but he respected him, and he not only respected him, but wanted to bring him on the show, which, of course, there was a financial reward for doing that. And to stand publicly and say, hey, this is a person who has been very influential, who I want everybody to know about. Similarly, in recent years, there's a white organist. His name is Jerry DeFrancesco. Wonderful, wonderful organist. I mean, man, he just makes that thing talk. He's got a show that's on satellite radio, I believe. It's called Organized, and it's all about, featuring jazz organists. And most of the ones that he features on there are black. I mean, he talks about Jimmy Smith. He talks about Jimmy McGriff. He talks about Richard Groove Holmes. He talks about Lonnie Liston Smith. Some of these other great, great jazz organists that have influenced him. And when he, does some of his public talks, he says, he's got a little jazz voice going on too. Yeah, so Jimmy would do something like this. And he'd, show a riff that Jimmy Smith was known for, or groove, and he'd change his settings. He would play a little something like, And so to me, that counts more as appreciation than appropriation, because he's giving the credit where the credit is due. And in that show, he's playing these people's recordings, which means that there are royalties that are associated with that. So it's not by accident that he's doing those things. So now, by contrast, we heard the story about Elvis, and I didn't say this. This was the Encyclopedia of Alabama that said this. But probably many of you have heard that story. In more recent years, I know some folks will disagree with me about this too, but there was a song called Blurred Lines by a very, very popular artist, Mr. Robin Thicke. And it's a funky song. I mean, I've played it. Soul Expressions has played it many, many times. Like a lot of pop songs, just a little on the raunchy side, but it was very, very, very popular. But it had a tremendous similarity to Marvin Gaye's song, the original version. Keep on dancing, right? Got to give it up, right? And still singing in falsetto, the same kind of groove. Even that kind of, I think it was a bottle top that they used in the Marvin Gaye recording, sampling that, and even his woo in there. What would it have hurt, just thinking in retrospect, what would it have hurt to go to the Marvin Gaye's family or his estate or whoever owned the rights to that song and say, listen, I love Marvin Gaye. I love Marvin Gaye. I love Marvin Gaye. I want to do a song that's in that style, and I want to use this groove. Would you be okay with that? How much would it cost me to do that? And just, I mean, it's not like this wasn't a man who was on the pop charts. He had money. He came from money because his dad, Alan Thicke, was in show business for years, so he was not struggling at all. So, why not go that route and pay whatever they ask for in the front end rather than put this thing out, not pay anything, and for everybody who listens to it to hear the difference, because it's only one key different. Okay, so for example, I'm gonna show you. All right, so the Marvin Gaye song was in A, right? And the Robin Thicke song was in G, one whole step lower. right? So very, in the law, they call it substantial similarity. And the other thing is access, because of course you had to have been able to hear it before you did your song in order to prove a case of copyright infringement. Well, so long story short, he lost, and he had to pay a heck of a lot of money, also legal fees, and he still came out making money. That's the crazy thing, because he made so much more money than Marvin Gaye, who wrote the song, ever did, you know? And that's really the problem. That's what I'm calling attention to here. So often, our folks create stuff, and it gets appropriated by other people who take it because it was so powerful, and it was so impactful. I mean, think about another Marvin Gaye song like "What's Going On," which is now, I think, over 50 years old. Hey, Brother Ken, thanks. People, I don't know how many people have recorded cover versions of What's Going On, but the stuff he was talking about was in response to the reality that he saw every day. And unfortunately, it's still true today. Don't punish me with brutality. I mean, he could have been writing that this year, but will the people who cover it give him the credit? And let's go ahead and put the money with, will they give him the money that from the wealth that they receive for his creation? And that is really the question. Luke 12:48, unto whomsoever much is given, of the same shall much be required. So you don't just get to take stuff and say it's yours and then did all this money for it and not have any further responsibility. Well, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's unfortunate that you got sued, but you made a choice first before you got sued. And so you took the risk. And there's other people who have not been sued, whose other stuff has substantial similarity. Yeah, I know I'm treading some thick water here too. But there's a song, I think it was Ed Sheeran, take me into your loving arms, right? Now, check this out. Let's get it on. Oh, babe, let's get it on. Same chord progression. Okay, now, I don't think Ed Sheeran got sued, but come on now. And Ed Sheeran made a heck of a lot of money off of that song. And the list just goes on and on and on and on. But the thing is that our people have been resilient enough to, even when the stuff gets appropriated, they just make more. And so that's what has driven some of the musical movements that we've seen over the years. But I think it's very important that folks give credit where credit is due. We also, I don't know if you had a chance to see the movie, I think it was Cadillac Records, where they talk about Muddy Waters and the whole kind of blues into rock and roll thing, or the group the Rolling Stones that got their name from a Muddy Waters song. And how, I mean, good Lord, the Rolling Stones, how popular did they become? How much money did they make compared to how much Muddy Waters made? Or Howlin' Wolf, or some of those other folks that really gave rise to that kind of hard-edged sound. I mean, the guy was taking, what did he take, like a glass and put it up against his guitar to get that kind of, before they even had electric guitars with amps and all that stuff, to give it that kind of growling sound. These Muddy Waters doing this out in the Mississippi Delta, So, and the way that he sang, that launched a whole movement. I think about, I'm a saxophone player. Kenny G, extremely financially successful, extremely made a lot of money off of music in the music business. And for many people, he was the epitome of smooth jazz. And, this is the way that the soprano saxophone should sound. Okay, he plays very well, don't get me wrong. And, he got his start with Jeff Lorber, who's a keyboard player. Back then he was just going by Kenneth Gorlick. But, not taking anything away from the way he plays. But, he actually was quoted in an interview one time as saying he wanted to be the white Grover Washington, and he thinks he succeeded. Well, maybe. I think there's some pretty substantial differences. But because I love Grover Washington, and I don't make any bones about the fact that I emulate his style. I've said it in interviews. I've even done Mr. Magic one time here for, I think we're doing Black Music Month, and I did a version of Mr. Magic, not trying to do something so different, but just trying to sound like him, as a tribute, But how many tributes has Kenny G done to the folks who have helped to make the music that he's, bought his homes off of? I don't know. Maybe he could answer that at some point. I don't know. Or y'all could ask him. But I feel like, when you're given that much, that you have a responsibility to give back. And everybody doesn't agree. Everybody doesn't embrace that. But I believe the scripture, unto whomsoever much is given, much is required. And so, I wrote down, and this is probably, I'll probably edit a little bit, but this is something I wrote down in my book. It is my hope that more of the Black creators will receive their flowers, translation, money and recognition, while they are still here to receive them. Some popular Black artists have become billionaires recently, which is great. Don't know if we will ever have any gospel jazz or gospel jazz billionaires anytime soon with the way the industry is set up, i.e. streaming and all that kind of stuff. It's very difficult to make any substantial revenue from album sales because streaming has largely replaced physical product and even digital downloads. But it is my hope, again, through the enlightenment of this book, I'm talking about my book, that we will raise awareness of the value of gospel jazz as it exists today and as it has evolved over history, not just in the U.S., but in the world, and how digging deep into the history, the sound, the texture, and the meat and potatoes of what makes this music sound as amazing and powerful as it does will be both a musical and a spiritual inspiration for those courageous enough to seek it out for years to come. Like I said, it's my hope that we will consider this topic seriously and not glance over it, not continue to repeat the errors of the past. And I'll call them errors because they were wrong. Some of that stuff was just wrong. It shouldn't have happened, and it shouldn't happen today. So those of you recording artists, be careful where you share your stuff. And I know I'm conscious of this too. When I share my stuff, I see people, following me on social media, and they're, and then next thing you know, I see, oh, okay, so you put out a little thing too. That sounds nice there. Sounds a little familiar too, but all right. I mean, the idea is that, we want to strike a balance between this proprietary idea, the Magna Carta talked about this whole idea of property, which doesn't exist the same way in other parts of the world. But we just want to, especially when there's a financial reward or there's financial gain that's attached to it, we just want to be fair. Brother Harry, hello, sir. We want to be fair to those who have done the work and actually done the creating. We want to recognize them for the genius that they have provided and exemplified. Thank you, Brother Ken. Give credit where credit is due, and not just credit, but money, because, at the end of the day, you should be able, if you've written a song or popularized a song or been the emblem of a particular musical movement, you should be able to benefit from that financially. Even as other folks who've made, signature discoveries or, societally changing inventions have been able to benefit from those things, because this is your life's work. So that's only right. So I really feel that we have to keep that in mind. And anyone who watches this video, Saturday Sentiments is all about getting you to think deeply about things. These are not surface conversations that we have here. We want you to think deeply about this stuff, and we want you to go and, be transformed by what you hear, and go and, do something about it. Don't just, oh yeah, that was really nice. It's thought-provoking what you said there, Richard. No, go take what I've said, what you've thought about. Maybe you agree, maybe you don't agree, but go analyze it and challenge what you've always known and see if it holds water. Because, we're not supposed to stay the same. Our mindsets are not supposed to stay the same. We're supposed to continue to grow. We're supposed to continue to be informed, to be enlightened, to be educated, and so on. So that's the essence of my spiel today. Now, having said that, I want to share my song, Count Your Blessings. And there's a little bit of a story here, too, because I was born in Brooklyn, New York. My parents were born in Brooklyn, New York. My grandparents were born in Brooklyn, New York. And it wasn't until we get to my great-grandparents that we have some Caribbean ancestry there. So my father's mother was born on the island of Trinidad, and but she left when she was 13, and so she spent most of her life in the States. And also my father's mother's father comes from Barbados, and so there's some Caribbean ancestry there too. But again, it goes back several generations now. Now again, having grown up in Brooklyn, there is a significant Caribbean community in Brooklyn, especially in, as we call it, Crown Heights. It's Crown Heights, but when you say it with a little bit of accent, it comes off sounding like Crown Heights. And also Flatbush, or as they say, Flatbush. It's a very strongly impactful community. Has been there for many years, and so when I did Count Your Blessings, I wasn't. I wanted to do it. I specifically wanted to use some of my little, ethnomusicology exposure and celebrate this culture. And I had been to the Eastern Parkway, the festivals before, and you hear stuff on the radio, and you have friends that you go to school with, different things. And so it was the music that I really liked, and I wanted to celebrate, that sound with this song. But by no means was I at all trying to put myself out there as some kind of authority on Caribbean music. Nope, not at all. And folks who are would probably say, hey, listen, you got this mixed in with this and this style, and this one is all kind of crashing into each other. That's fine. That is totally fine. Because, again, I'm not trying to put myself out there as the definitive authority on this at all, but rather just that would be appropriation. And I should say there's a power element to this too that I guess I should have said before. When you have greater resources, when you have greater access, when you have means of distribution, you have resources to promote your stuff that other folks who have historically been oppressed do not. well then, it is also easier for you to put yourself out there than for them to do so, because you can, So again, I am not trying to use whatever access I have, here being in the States, to try to co-opt something at all. Rather, it's just an appreciation and show my love, tribute to some of my family who's gone on before, and also to this just great style of music that I really love and really celebrate. So I want to just give you a little bit of the original, and then I'll let you hear my own. So let me see. All right, so y'all forgive my singing a little bit, but count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your blessings, see what God has done. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your many blessings, see what God has done. All right, so that's what the original sounded like. And then this was what my version sounds like. Whoops, hold on. And you can clap your hands if you want. Put this in there. You can say it. It's Mr. Renato Toms on the timbales. Hey. Yeah, this is just me. Just playing a keyboard steel pan. But I love the real thing. And this is my dude, Sticks Bones, on the drum. Take a breath. Carlo. What's going on, dude? Hey. Haha. Yeah. Let's see who else is here. John Weappenhurst. Hey, dude. How you doing? Hey. Back to the top. Hey. Getting ready to take it out. Here we go. Blessings. Oh, yeah. Count your blessings, y'all. Always remember to count your blessings. Be grateful for everything and everyone. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Also remember to like, follow, subscribe, and click the notification bell for Jazz in the Spirit Everything. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on Periscope, we're on Twitch, we're on Instagram. We're everywhere. And also, you know, feel free to patronize the t-shirts and the mugs, as well as the CD. That song you just heard, Count Your Blessings, is on the CD. It's also available for download. It's also available for streaming. Although I'm just going to tell you, streaming hardly pays anything to the artist. So stream if you must, but it'd be more helpful if you bought it. I'm gonna just tell you what it is, that's part of just the reality that we live in now. But I thank you guys so much for hanging out with me, part of your Saturday morning. So I hope you all have a great day. If you're not erstwhile occupied and you'd like to see how we roll online in a historic black church, I heartily invite you to join us at the Fourth Baptist Church. We're going to be online tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. You can just go to the website fourthbaptist.com, or you can Google me. I probably have links up there. We're on Zoom. We're also on Facebook Live during that time, and I'll be sitting right in this same spot. So I'm getting ready for tomorrow too. And we're going to be sharing music, and our pastor, Dr. William Eric Jackson Sr., is going to be bringing the word. So definitely invite you to come check that out. But this has been a very enjoyable episode of Saturday Sentiments, where we dig deep to get to the good stuff. And I hope that y'all have enjoyed this. I thank you so much for your comments, the things that you have shared with me, and I hope that this has given you all something to think about. And for those that are listening and watching later, definitely hope that it gives you something to think about, because Luke 12:48 says, "For unto whomsoever much is given, of the same shall much be required." Y'all have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. All right. God bless you.